Hi, this is Marina from Dark Star Astrology, and I'm sharing my Christmas Eve with you. And here's my tree and crib. So I'm going to do a bit of a fireside chat in a minute, but I just want to show off my tree because I love it. Let's zoom in, and yes, it looks lovely. I'm very pleased with it. It's a bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's an 8-footer. It can touch the ceiling. But yeah, there's my tree. And here's my crib. Can we see the crib? Little baby Jesus isn't there yet. He's on the top. Anyway, I'm going to talk about these in a minute. Oh, fancy. All right. Okay, so what do I want to say really? I just want to, well, I'm just going to talk about things that are to do with Christmas, because Christmas is the time of year where we celebrate the Northern Hemisphere, and being Europeans, this is supposed to be a time of hope because the sun has returned. The sun has returned, and the symbolism will be that this little Jesus that's on top of there will be in the crib once more. But really, that's just it's just the sun. It's just talking about the return of the sun. So another thing as well I wanted to talk about was the three kings, because they're an interesting bunch, because apparently there are different versions, and it's not just three. There was sometimes 4, even 8, and even 12. But I think this is to do with the numbers and the numerology. And also, I like to think of them as 4 because I've actually got 4. I'll show you. Okay, these are my 4 kings. So, so who's this one then? Hang on, who's this one? I think this one, I think he's Balthazar, maybe. He's out of focus, isn't he? All right, there we go. Balthazar. Apparently, out of the 3 kings, 1 came from Persia, 1 came from India, and 1 came from Babylonia. So I think this one came from Babylon. I'm going to say Balthazar came from Babylon. Okay, the next one, who's this one? Well, he looks pretty Western, doesn't he? So I think this is Caspar, but Persia? No. It's confusing, isn't it? Anyway, so that's the Western kind of one. And then we've got the guy in the turban. So I think he comes from, I think he's the one from India, obviously. And I think he's Melchior, but see, this crib actually came from America. So it's very white. So instead, I found this one. So I think this is Melchior. And actually, yes, Melchior. Mel is a prefix for melanin. And so I think he's Melchior. Yeah, so he's the darker one. So these are my 4 kings. So I think you can make kings whatever you want them to be. So having the 4 kings, it could be the 4 continents, it could be the 4 stars. So I'm going to have this guy from Babylonia, who I think could be Jewish maybe, because Babylon seems to be the sort of place where things like the Kabbalah came from. So yeah, he's going to be, what is he going to be? I'm going to give him a star name. So I'm going to give him Aldebaran, because there's the 4 stars of Persia, and Aldebaran is the Pleiadian one, and the Pleiades seem to be quite new agey, and all the original versions of Islam and also Judaism are, you know, the Sufi side of things and the Kabbalah, and a lot of the mystery schools have, or the Western tradition have the sort of New Agey roots to them. So I think he's the New Ager. He's a New Ager, and also because he's a bit of a gypsy and a bit of a wanderer, he has no home really. So yeah, he's Aldebaran, I think. Now, he's Fomalhaut, the dreamy Indian Hindu. See, I think they all represent, I think the three wise men represent the 3, 4, whatever you want to call them, schools of knowledge and religions. But the religions that aren't the Judean ones, you know, the original mystical religions that came before. So the Hindu guy with the turban, he's the little Sikh guy. He's going to be Fomalhaut, because I think Fomalhaut as a star matches him quite well. It's the most romantic of them all, and it's less warlike as well. So yeah, he's probably the most peaceful king. The Western guy is going to be, has to be Regulus, doesn't he? He's Regulus. And also because he's holding gold as well. I mustn't forget he's holding gold. So yeah, he's the European Regulus, the Lionheart. Yeah. And Melchior, so he, I think, is the Middle East, and he's going to be Antares because he's anti-Aries. And when I say anti-Aries is more like the alpha male, the solar kind of god. And sun worship is chiefly a European thing because we worship the sun, because we miss the sun when it's not there, and we feel the seasons stronger than any other any other ethnic group, I think. So, and we also have evolved to get through the winter. So he's a desert guy, and in the desert the sun is their enemy, really. And also I was going to say Aries is the spring, when there's the return of the sun. So Antares, yeah, I think Melchior goes with Antares. So who I think is kind of Babylonian Semitic, possibly Arab Semitic, but then Arabs are Semitic, but Jewish, Arab conflict, Middle East, I don't know. You know, you can play around with these, but it's sort of, to me, that kind of makes sense, that there are these 4 principles. Christmas, it's to do with the West, it's to do with Europe, it's to do with the seasons, it's to do with the return of the sun. And if you're living in a place where the sun is important, which we are, where you have a winter, then Christmas, you know, this is a Christmas tree, it's not a holiday tree. So that's why I always insist on saying Merry Christmas. Well, I don't insist on it, I'm not going to say to you, you've got to say Christmas, but I'm not going to back down from saying Christmas, that's for sure. So that's why I want to talk about why Christmas is so important. And it's not just to do with being a Christian. The Christos is the sun. So we celebrate the return of the sun and the winter solstice. And you can call it Yule as well. Yuletide is pretty much, at least brings us back to the sort of pagan tradition of Christmas. But to me, Christianity and paganism are the same thing. All that happened was that Christianity was a kind of overlay of the pagan beliefs of Europe from, you know, it's astrotheology, whatever way you look at it. So, should we get off my hair? So that's why I wanted to talk about Christmas, and how you can read, like I have a crib, as you saw, and it's just been, what's the word? the icons of the crib, like Mary and Joseph and the shepherds and the kings. You can have a crib and not be a practicing Christian or Catholic or whatever, and it's a lovely thing to see. So I don't want to see those things. I don't want to see the nativity go because it's because people brand it as some Judeo-Christian religion from desert religion, you know, and pagans will get very angry about Christianity and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, no, it's silly. Pagans and Christians have a lot in common, and peace, man. We have to build these bridges, and we have to really reclaim what Christianity was originally. So, and another thing I would urge you, because this is what got me back into my roots, my Catholic roots really, was when I watched a series. It's quite an old series. I think it was made in the 60s or 70s, and it's called Civilization. I think I've talked about this before, but it goes through the history of Europe basically, and the wonderful churches and sacred music and the art that went into it, and the architecture and the sacred architecture and the sacred geometry, all these things, they're just really important. So it's part of the Western tradition, and you know, I'm not going to all right, this is the quote that I wanted to start off with actually, and that's why it's so important to talk about Christmas, is the quote by Alexander Solzhenitsyn is, "To destroy people you must first sever their roots." So I feel that's what's happening with Christianity. Is like it's been demonized. They're trying to replace it with the New Age or just atheism. And what has atheism got to offer, really? There's no spirituality there. So I used to be very anti-religion, thinking that, oh, it causes wars and it causes division, but it doesn't have to. It just doesn't have to. So religion really is, I think, something evolves out of the land. So that's why astrotheology and Christianity, sun worship, and also when you go back to the other sort of sun worshipping myths, mythology, and things like Zoroastrianism, it's all about the fire. It's all about the light. So, and the return of the light. So it's mysticism, you know. So we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Why winter's important, and why winter places or people that grew up where there's a winter had to learn to defer gratification, and they had to learn farming, otherwise they would have starved during the winter. Most places on earth that aren't in the northern hemisphere, or that aren't America, because North America has seasons as well. And it is quite interesting the way that when Europeans found the New World, where they all settled, like the people from Northern Europe were North America, and the further north you get, the more Northern European you get. And then South America is more of the Southern European, and the Spanish, obviously, and the Portuguese are there. So people do go to the climates their bodies are suited to, because it makes no sense. Why would you move somewhere, if you're very pale skinned, you just don't get on with like humidity and very, very hot sun. And so this is why the whole immigration thing is so puzzling to me, because people from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, when they move up to Sweden, where there's, God, you know, some places in Sweden, I mean, it's very north, and so the sun there is very weak during the winter months, and vitamin deficiencies, if you've got lots of melanin, obviously the sun can't get through. I mean, it's bad enough for Europeans, and Southern Europeans like me too. I crave the sun. So they're not really made for it. And then you go to Australia, and the cases of skin cancer there are very high, because obviously Northern Europeans who went there, not really suited to that kind of sun all the time. The tradition of gift giving also comes from the three kings as well, because they brought gifts, obviously. But I do think it is the gift of knowledge and wisdom, and the whole point of religions, again, is to give some kind of code or understanding of natural law. So, and the natural law is different in different parts of the world, because some parts of the world don't have seasons. So that's, I mean, that's the crucial thing about Europe that we don't really appreciate, I think, is the seasons and how that's evolved us as people. And I know as I'm speaking here, I'm still, because of the internet now, you're speaking to the whole world, and obviously the whole world isn't European, but I am. So you can't, just because the whole world is listening, you don't have to gear your message or water down your message to appeal to everyone, because no matter what you do, you'll end up appealing to no one, because people are individuals and people come from different places, and everybody has a different way of understanding things. So you get nothing. I mean, this is what happens if you try to appeal to everyone. If you try to, and this is the reason that in order to control people, you want to destroy their individuality and their culture, because then they just become spam, basically. Spam, you know what spam is? I don't know if you get it in America, but it's just processed meat, just everything mushed together into one thing, and it has no identity at all. So then you can, when you've got these blank people who don't have a culture or religion, and religion and culture are intertwined with nature as well, and the ancestors too. You know, the respect for the ancestors, and the ancestors are your bloodline. So, and everyone's bloodline, everybody's ancestors are important. So this is the thing that's really bugs me about the whole, whenever Europeans want to preserve their culture, they're accused of supremacism, and this stupid thing about white supremacism as well. What is that? It's I know it applies probably more to America, because they were categorized in their constitution, as whites and blacks, and they weren't categorized ethnically. They weren't categorized like, Italians and French or whatever. It was the New World. So all the Europeans were just Americans. So, but I come from Europe, so to me it seems like a weird thing to have white movements just for white people. I belong to a group who are loosely Europeans, but there's nationalism to me is being Italian or being English or being Scottish, or so it is a bit of an odd one, and I think it confuses things, and it makes it easy for the divide and conquer strategy to work, because then all whites are lumped together, and then all whites are being blamed for colonialism or whatever certain groups of them did, which I think is really unfair. By the way, I'm having a drink. Yeah. I don't normally do this. This is most unprofessional, but it is the festive season. So this is vodka with Lushberry rose sparkling mixer thing, organic. Anyway, so cheers. So as this goes down, it might get a bit more heated. But yeah, so this misnomer of white identity is a bit I think, is a bit of a hot potato. At the same time, I suppose, if the birth rates continue to drop in Europe and we go from being, I think it was 30% of the planet, Europeans were, or white Europeans, to being single digit, then I guess everybody, the remaining Europeans, are going to form one kind of identity, and I suppose that's what's going on, maybe, because we're in minority status now, and that's what happens, isn't it? It's like the smaller you get, the more tribal you get again. So maybe that's just what's happening. It's just a natural evolution of becoming a minority in their own countries. So how did I get onto this from the Three Kings? Oh, because they were from different continents. Yes, that's it. So yeah, there's a certain magic about the land that your forefathers came from. And I do wonder about the New Worlders, because they're not living on their native soil. And there is a power from going back to the lands of your ancestors and being on the soil that seeded you. It's really important. Even though, and this is the weird thing, is sometimes I don't know where home is for me, because obviously I've done my DNA test and I'm 2/3 Southern European, and that's Greece and Italy. They're so near each other, you know, you might as well just say it's just one thing. But the other third is a bit of a mixture, and I don't know if I've told, it will be a mixture of, I think, him and, where's the Persian one? Oh God, I've lost him. Maybe him. Yeah, North Africa, Caucasus Mountains, Babylonia. Anyway, oh, that's what I was going to talk about. Was what struck me about those three places that the wise men are supposed to come from is they do seem to be, now don't take this the wrong way, Aryan is the Indo-European. I mean, Iran, Persia is Iranian, Aryan, sorry. There's supposed to be Aryans in India as well, and that's how the caste system evolved. Again, not sure, but it seemed to me, yeah, Persia, Babylonia, and India. And then as you go west, it's Aryan as well, obviously, because it's, you know, it's European. So the Indo-European thing is another mystery. We just don't know enough about our own history and our roots and where it really came from. Most of it to me seems like it's lies, but I think what we're taught at school and college doesn't really help anything, and most of it is propaganda anyway, and disguised to keep us all really confused as to where we really come from and what original mysticism and mystic religions had to say, because they are empowering. And the problem is that a lot of all the kind of Eastern stuff is all being kind of clumped together in Theosophy and the New Age movement, which I don't trust at all, and all this sort of one world religion thing. Again, it's just, you know, we're all equal, we're all the same. I know there's a root between all religions, you know, they all basically say the same thing, but they all are slightly different, and they are corresponding to the land that seeded them. You know, they do have different variants, and those variants are what are important. They are important. So because I think they help you connect to the land, and I think the myths, the Greek myths, the Roman myths, again, they're all connection to the land and to things that go on in our DNA that we can't really explain, and things like narcissism? Why is there mental illness? Why do we feel split? Why do we get depressed? What is melancholia? I mean, these could be the humours as well, couldn't they? Melchior, melancholy, what would he be? Sanguine, phlegmatic, and what should we have for him? Choleric. It's, everything has correspondences. I'm lost now. Anyway, life on Earth is a wonderful, wonderful rainbow of people, and what makes a rainbow is its separate colours. And you get a big brush with water and mesh them all together, and you're not going to have a rainbow anymore, are you? You're just going to have sludge. And I know I've said this before, but what's sad for Europe is that it's the only homeland we have. And whenever I talk about it, I'm going to get someone who always sends me, I get the odd email from people who kind of want me to be what they want me to be, because if they like my astrology, they want me to fit into their politics, and if they're progressive, into their progressive we are all one new agey thing. But I don't fit into that, sorry. Yeah, usually they'll say things, I'm really disappointed and it's karma, Europe is, oh yeah, well I was talking about Sicily, that was it, because Italy invaded, I don't know where it was, I know, yeah, Somalia and Ethiopia apparently, so it's reparations. Well, if everybody asked for reparations for everything, every bad thing that humans did to each other, it's an eye for an eye. We'd just be blind, okay? That's number one. Second, why does this generation have to pay for the sins of the fathers as well? And by that, you can, if you're going to say that, then does that mean that all Arabs have to pay for a terrorist attack by one of their tribe, one of the ones with the screw loose? No. Not everyone in Italy invaded these countries. The elites did, and usually they will use soldiers from the working class who don't want to be there. So why do they have to pay twice? Because it's not, like I said, always, like I always say, it's not the elites who pay for this thing. They live in their gated communities. Same with all the, yeah, the Champagne socialists, and also the Hollywood bunch as well. They live in their own bubbles, so they're not. Anyway, you've heard me say this before, so I don't want to go into that on this Christmas broadcast. But you get the point. So I don't understand why this keeps coming back, this karmic payback. First of all, as another thing too, is you, dear emailer person, whoever you are, what gives you the right to decide who the karmic punishment for certain groups of people or certain countries? That's up to God, whatever God is, or it's up to universal law. It's not up to a government or a human being on this earth to dish out this divine retribution, you know. Natural law will take care of it, you know. So that's another thing. So yeah, but I want to leave this on a really good note, because if that's the case, if there is a universal law and if it corrects itself, then we don't really have anything to worry about. What I think will happen, or what happens, is that people naturally just gravitate to where they feel comfortable. And if someone who wants to live with other English people in a very sort of white society, you go and live there. There's nothing to stop you. If you want to live in a multicultural city, you go and live there. There's nothing to stop you. And you see it happening naturally, organically. And when people move en masse to another country, the Italians all stick together. People move to where they feel comfortable, and it's just normal. What I also wanted to say too was this whole thing about the white supremacists thinking they're better than everybody else. Doesn't everyone think their tribe is better than everybody else? Or maybe they don't. You know, maybe some people look to other cultures as more exotic and more exciting, and they think their culture's boring. Well, the only reason some people think that is because they've lost their culture, and it's deliberate. It's deliberate. And once you stop feeling guilty for your culture and plug back into it and find your folklore and realise that the people that I feel the most sorry for really is the Brits, the English people, because they seem to have really lost theirs. And the whole thing with chavs as well, you know, the way that they're called chavs now. To me, a chav is someone who just has celebrity culture to replace their spirituality and a connection with the land, because there's no connection with the land anymore. And the people that are the happiest are people who, they move out of London, they go to a small nice little village, and they have their communities again. And then they have things like harvest festivals, and you know, they go to the church. They might not be really into the religion, but they just go there because it's a community, and communities are important. So just find your community. It's not hateful to want to move into a community that's like you. I'm not saying that everyone should be rigidly, you know, if you're someone who is, I don't know, half French and half Italian, then you're sort of split between two, but you find the one that you feel more comfortable in. And this is another thing as well with moving around, because being daughter of immigrants, I don't actually know where I belong either. I don't really fit in with the very, very English, by the way. So I don't count myself as English. Most of my friends are from a mixed immigrant, Polish or half English, half Sikh, or, you know, it's always a half and half. So, and I think that does cause a bit of stress. The happiest people are closer to their culture, or are not sort of split all over the place. And when I get emails from people saying I'm a real mix of so many different ethnic groups, they can't understand someone who has got very strong cultural roots, which I have. And so, but it's not fair on you to impose your internationalist, globalist mentality on me, because I don't feel at home being a wanderer. Sometimes some of us do feel like outsiders, and I do feel like an outsider in a lot of ways, because I don't really fit in with the astrology, the mainstream astrology either. But and some people are naturally hermits, and I think if you're someone who's into philosophy or questioning things, then you are naturally going to be a bit of an outsider. But not everyone's meant to be that either. Some people are better in tight-knit communities, other people are gypsies, other people want to be in their very, very rigid, say, just Northern European groups. And that's fine. That's fine. I get so annoyed with people trying to impose their lifestyles onto everyone. That's communism. So that's all I want to say, is that I think people will gravitate to where they belong, the four corners of the earth, wherever they may be, and or their four humours, and this is the great thing about astrology, that it sort of teaches you that there are 7 planets, they're all very different energies, but none of them are wrong. And you can't make Venus behave like Mars. Well, you can if she's in Aries. See, this is the thing. But essentially, Venus in Aries is not comfortable there. She's working at a disadvantage, and these are the rules of natural law. And but also, things would be very boring if they just stayed in their boxes as well, and there wasn't movement and regeneration, and the fact that you do get new influxes of people, and to refresh cultures, to give them something to fight against, so that sometimes, yeah, when you come into conflict with something, that's when you find out who you are, because you're thinking, well, I'm not that, and I don't like that. And then you have to stand up for yourself. So conflict is good in certain circumstances, not horrible, violent conflict, but sometimes that's the way it has to be. If people aren't getting the message, you know. So, and that's what happens with transits as well in astrology, is that when you get a transit of Saturn. See, I've had a bit too much to drink, I'm starting to slur. It's only been one, I haven't even finished it. It's just an empty stomach here. Yeah, the transits. So if it didn't hit you the first time, the second time will hit harder. And if you ignore it the second time, then the third time is going to be, you know, bash you in the head. And that's what happens. So if you take, it's how quickly you learn the lessons. So my message of hope for Christmas and the New Year is that, yeah, everything happens for a reason. Don't be ashamed of your heritage. Trust your feelings. Trust your gut. Don't be made to feel guilty. Guilt and shame is the worst thing. It's not good for your health. And just be proud of who you are. Just be proud of who you are. And you are, although, you know, the ancestors are important. The ancestors have, you know, carved out these roads and made mistakes and made some wonderful things as well. It's, you know, it's always a bit of both. But if you can't take credit for their good things, then you shouldn't also take the baggage of the bad things they did as well. But just make sure that you don't do it. You know, you learn from those mistakes. But reparations, no. Nobody should have to pay those for something that happened generations ago. What I would like to see, though, is why, you know, can't you trace the people that actually did do these things, you know, who did invade these countries or did own slaves, and find those people? Why don't they pay for it? You know, I'm sure it's easily traceable to find the families. But again, you know, then I don't think it's fair for their descendants to pay for what their great-great-great-grandfather did either, because if you have a narcissistic parent and they've done some horrible things, are you supposed to pay for that as well? You know? So we're all responsible for our own actions. And the main thing is, don't be a victim either. Don't be a victim of your DNA. Don't be a victim of your inheritance. Take the good things, leave the bad things. You're free to do that. And you can judge, you can make generalizations about a group of people, but I won't prejudge on a one-to-one level. If I meet somebody and they're of a certain ethnic group that I worry about, I'm not going to judge them by that if I know them, you know. And that's it, you know, on a one-to-one basis, you get to know people and you know them as individuals. But you can, for survival's sake, make generalizations of, well, I might not want to live in that area because there's a lot of a certain group of people who are causing trouble, and that's fine. You know, it's my own ancestors, the Sicilian mafia. Like, who would want to, you know, wouldn't blame people for not wanting to live in a heavily Sicilian area back in the day when there was lots of mafia shootings. No, that would be silly. Obviously not all Sicilians are gangsters, and not all Sicilians have that kind of mentality, but it is Sicilian, and you know, but it's just, you make generalizations as a survival strategy, and then when you meet people individually, then you obviously change your mind or say, oh no, they're one of them. Yeah, sorry, I'm babbling now, but you get my drift. There's always going to be exceptions, but as a rule, you can make generalizations over a certain country, and you go to these countries and they have a different mentality, and that's fine. And you could choose to go there, or you choose not to go there. But no one should make you feel bad if you don't want to go there because you don't feel comfortable. And this is the point. It's just, you have to trust your instincts, and you have to not be groomed to ignore them. I think that's really what it is. But once you stop feeling guilty, and once you trust your gut, the world is your oyster and everything's wonderful. I'll leave it there and say, in the words of John Lennon, war is over if you want it. Peace out.